So big question now, because we know that he confirmed that that rumor was just a big fat rumor and nothing more, but we also know the nature of the film industry, and sometimes things do get fully developed, but then they never take off. So just playing a little, you know, look into your crystal ball kind of thing here with everything that Disney has planned with Star Wars, do you see this full trilogy, Rian Johnson's trilogy, getting off the ground, and when do you think we're actually going to see it?
Listen, and it really boils down to me loving Rian Johnson, so I want to say yes, it's going to happen, but probably not for another 5 years or so.
Wow. There's a big gap there.
Right, which concerns me, which then puts me in the camp of I'm not entirely sure that it's going to happen, which is a bummer because of all the reasons I already talked about. I want to see Rian Johnson make something in Star Wars that is all his, aside from the fact that there's some planets and ships and guns that have already been named.
Very curious. What specifically makes you think that it might take 5 years if it happens at all? Is it because of Knives Out? Is it because of the other things
I think it's because of the other things that they've got going on. I think it's because the big focus right now is, again, going to be on those series for streaming. I believe that if The Mandalorian is as successful and popular as I am very confident it's going to be, there's going to be a big shift towards focusing on creating more content for that streaming service. I mean, that's where we're seeing things going now. I mean, it's part of the conversation we were having before about these sort of mid-budget $30 to $60 million films, how a lot of them aren't getting theatrical releases or getting very limited theatrical releases and are getting bought by Netflix or Amazon Prime. So now Disney has this whole other world to play in. So I think that's going to draw a lot of the focus, and the only film series that is going to continue to actively be in development for the next several years, like actually casting, filming, having directors and writers and making movies, is the Benioff and Weiss trilogy.
Okay.
So that is one of two sides for me. So I agree with her. On the other side, I think 2022, because, you know, we get episode 9 this year. I think giving it a couple years to breathe, and I think moving forward, they might do kind of the Marvel method. So I think if they don't go that way, I think what they might do is do a movie or two a year, and they have streaming, and they just bolster their Star Wars universe, and all of a sudden we're just inundated like we are with the superhero stuff. I can't imagine Disney doesn't see the success of Marvel and go, well, we got this Star Wars, and realize they can have
seem to like it.
2 mega properties going at once. Like, it's right there as an opportunity. They know that people will see 3 or 4 movies a year with Marvel. Yeah. They know that people will watch streaming service simultaneously as movies. So if they see the success of that, I can't imagine there's not at least 30 executives going, and prepping that for their 2020s.
The same people that are like, we need to keep making pirates movies.
Same executives like, what if we have 8 pirates a year? But I could see that being where they shift. And the problem with all of this is the concern of the Fox-Disney merger being, we're going to have at most 5 superhero movies a year in the entire pantheon. If you're adding Star Wars to that, there is a limit that people want genre content. There is a limit of, I don't think if there's an every other month superhero movie that there's room for an every 4 months Star Wars movie. So, and Disney owns everything. So at some point, Star Wars and Marvel are going to clash. Star Wars and Pixar are going to clash. Yeah. So the only problem I see, and why I might be agreeing with what you're saying, is just the sheer amount of numbers on the calendar. So I could see them doubling down and doing a Rian Johnson situation where they let him have a movie and then they also continue the Mandalorian situation. But I could also see them just being like, we've crowded the marketplace.
I am so torn. You bring up a lot of valid points, and I think a crowded marketplace is one of the main reasons why I think, one, we might not see Rian's trilogy on the big screen. I started to play around in my mind as this whole conversation was playing out that maybe they would move that to the streaming service. But I think what's kind of tipping the scale for me in terms of believing that this is actually going to happen and we're going to see it on the big screen is that he's got a little bit of a point to make right now. I actually think that all of the negativity around The Last Jedi might have lit like even more of a fire under him than he would have had before. And I do think that's going to be the driving force to the finish line.
And I agree with you. And that was some of the conversation that we were having on Jedi Council this morning was, is Rian Johnson at a point where, because of all of the negativity he's received regarding Last Jedi, and again, he kills it on the internet. He seems like he does not give a fork, if you will, about what any of these people have to say. But I do think that there is a little part of this conversation, which is him sticking around just to stick it to those people and be like, look, I make great Star Wars movies.
And love or hate The Last Jedi, can we give it credit for the Red Room fight sequence working with any song in history?